I have the honor, humble privilege of introducing Elder May Louise Campbell for the second time in the conference this week. Elder May Louise joined us on Monday with a beautiful opening ceremony and prayer. She is from the Ojibwa Saulteaux Métis Nation. Sota, Métis Nation, my apologies. She has birthed five children and is a grandmother to, it just says many. So more than five, I presume. She grew up in a small Métis northern community of Kissing Lake, Cold Lake in Manitoba, and is a commitment to the healing of Aboriginal women has led her to create Grandmother Moon Lodge, a healing lodge dedicated to our growth through our ancient knowledge and ceremonies. Elder May has been a member of the network and a friend of ours and a mentor of ours for some time, and has supported our work with their wisdom and insight for a while. And I'm very grateful to introduce her now. And I want to hear from you and not me, Elder May Louise. So I'm gonna move off the spotlight here and listen. Hold on, there you go. We just got to get you unmuted. The quote of 2020. There we go. Awesome.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Can you hear me now? Good morning, everyone. So you're probably very tired. You had a wonderful week, a few days, I'm sure. A lot of sharing and learning from each other and learning about, of course, the past and moving into the future is what we should all be talking about now. Of course, with COVID and everything else that's happening, it makes things so difficult and a little confusing, I think, in the minds of many people now. And that's not unusual because when it comes to major changes in our lives, it's always very hard to put your head around what these changes are all about, and understanding why they're happening. And especially now with, there's so many situations in our community here in Winnipeg that need to be changed. Where we live right now, when I look out of my window, I see the homeless people. They're my neighbors. They live right across the street from me. And that really saddens my heart because of the times that we're at right now, and you're hopeful that we won't see any more homeless people. We've lived here for 11 years, and I have never seen it as bad as it is right now. We had a difficult summer being here because they are right in front of our home. And the summer has been, and now with winter coming on, I worry so much about where do they go? The place that's across the street is just a place where they can go in the evening to find a bed. But otherwise, there's no place for them. And I think in Winnipeg here, that shouldn't be happening today. So there's all these things that, I get worried and concerned about. And how does a community fix that? And it shouldn't be happening at this time of the year now. Thank goodness it's mild right now. But when it begins to get, below in the 20s, then, they have to have a place. So, that's one of the things I'm concerned and worried about and trying to push. I know they're trying to create this place on Main Street now where Mitchell Fabrics used to be, and it seems to not be ready, and they've been working at that for a long time. So my hope is that it's ready very soon so that the people have some place warm to go to during the day. So I'm sure many of the things that you've discussed, I'm sorry, I wish I knew more about all the wonderful sharing that you did during this time, but perhaps I will hear some things today. I understand you're going to have a bit of a circle later. So my hope is that as we move ahead, with all the things that you're so busy doing, each and every one of you, that we're moving ahead in a manner which is good for the people. And sometimes leadership is not thinking the way you do. each and every one of you, about bringing change to the community where we're actually helping people, especially with possible social enterprise things that are happening and things like that, to encourage and support wherever we can. I always believe that it's by working together and coming together that that things happen, and that's what you were doing all these last few days. I hope that you have learned from one another. I hope that you have shared. And one of the things we have to remember is never fear of sharing your voice. Sometimes we hold back because of fear, unfortunately. You know, you don't want to speak your voice and your truth because you think it's not going to be accepted. And I know a lot of our people feel that way. And so we have to overcome that fear. And we know that in your heart and in your spirit is goodness. And that's what it's all about. It's the goodness in your heart and in your spirit, and the way that you think and the way that you know things have to change in order to make life better for those that that are impoverished and those that are not able to, pardon me, to get educated and be where they should be. And so never be afraid to put a little boldness behind all the things that you believe in, and create and define your voice and be bold and move forward in a very strong way. Sometimes that's what we have to do. I often, excuse me, while I've been working with women for so many years, that's what I tell them. You are who you are. You are powerful. You are wise. You are a healer, and each one of you are too. We have that gift inside of us to be healers and recognize it as that. And healers to what? For the goodness of the people. There has to be more kindness and gentleness and understanding and working together and creating new ideas and becoming bold and not to be fearful of people that don't agree with you. So I hope that through this whole time that you've been together, that comes up and you fight for what you believe is right. And you also be bold for the things you believe are not right. And those are hard things to do sometimes, but those are the things we must do as people who are working to make things better for future generations. Really, that's what it's about. So I hope that that you've learned a lot. Excuse me. Okay. And I hope that that things have gone well for you, because this is a new way of communicating for you for the first time. So it'd be interesting to know how you feel about that and how it went. I'm sure it was wonderful. And so I look at this Zoom, all this Zoom stuff and everything is very confusing to me, of course, because I've never thought in my lifetime I would have to be communicating with people this way. So that's strange how we have moved into that kind of gatherings. You know, when we talk about gatherings, they're not supposed to be that way, but because of what is happening around the world, you know, with the COVID, who says, no, you know, stay alone, stay in your house, wear masks, and don't touch each other, don't do all of this kind of thing. It makes me think of a prophecy, actually, from our people many years ago. It's an old one. And they said we would live in different worlds. The first world that we were born into that can be remembered, there were 7 different worlds that we would be living in. And I am assuming the one that was fearful to me, it said we will live in a world of separation. And that will be a period of, it didn't say how long it will be. They said it would be as long as people behave in a manner that we are separated from each other. So I think about that. I think that's where we're at right now, living in that world of separation. And the COVID has really emphasized that more than anything else. Maybe it's because before COVID, there were already many separation things happened to the human race. You know, a good example would be the how children were separated in our nations from their parents, how they were taken away. For us, that was the beginning of this world of separation we will be experiencing, and so we come to this, and still things were not fixed, you know, so that wouldn't happen anymore. It's still happening. So I believe things happen for a purpose. So now we have COVID that is really separating us in a manner which none of us had ever thought about in our lifetime. And here we are. And so it's like shaking up humanity, you know, and saying, when are you going to arise above this and bring back the true nature of being human, which is to love and to share and to give and to understand and do and to bring unity and all of those beautiful things that we were at one time. So I think we're going to, this will pass, it will. And hopefully after that, we will understand the true meaning of love and life, unity, equality for all people. Perhaps then our minds will start thinking differently. So I hope that you did a lot of talking around that these times when you were together. So thank you very much for inviting me. And we have a song that we're going to sing, Jamie and I. And this song is to honor the grandmothers, because that's where I'm coming from. And we have to bring back the wisdom of the grandmothers and women who were healers in our generation many years ago, not my generation, but even before that. So this is a song to the grandmothers and to the Earth Mother for bringing more wisdom and love into our lives, and for us humans to all do the right thing for each other. Mm-hmm. So there we are, a song to carry you through the rest of the day, and blessings to all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Elder May. I'm so glad to have you here. It's so good to have your face and your energy. Every time I see you, I say this to people all the time. every time I'm with you or with Jamie, my heart rate comes down and my blood pressure comes down and I feel more grounded and centered. It's a gift that you have that I'm so thankful you shared with us today. Thank you. So Michael and I are going to kind of shepherd us through the rest of this final plenary, and I will warn you ahead of time that we both are probably going to cry a little bit, not because we're going to talk about things that are very hard or significant, but because for Michael, he's put a lot of effort towards the gathering this year, and I haven't actually, but I have for the last decade. So these moments are always very meaningful to me. So if I start crying, don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm just so happy and like in love with you. So it's okay. Yeah, we wanted to make sure we have a closing. Sometimes in the in-person gathering, we don't do a closing plenary because it's the end of the day after 8 or 9 hours of really intense conference work, and folks don't really want to go and sit again. And we've been trying to figure out how to do that because we know as we learn more about adult learning and how to do this work well, we know that reflection and closure and a chance to kind of pause before we move on is actually essential for us to learn as adults and for us to be able to turn learning into long-term action. And so that's a bit about what we're going to do today. We have a little bit of reflection to do. Elder May's already started us off in doing that. We're going to invite a couple of friends to do that with us. We're going to get a chance to see a preview of the beautiful image that Matea, our artist, has been creating. And we're going to do a last little bit of teaching. It's not really hard teaching. It's just sort of a sense of what this looks like in action to us, a chance for you to talk to each other a little bit and to have a little bit of time to reflect. So I'm so thankful to see that a lot of folks have joined us. I know it's a huge amount of time that you've put into this. So thank you for being here. So I'm just gonna give a little bit of framing to some of this, what we think we're doing here and what we want to impart to you, and then we'll invite our friends to have a bit of reflection. So I think we've been trying for a long time at CCEDNet to be much clearer and much more strategic about what is it exactly that we're doing and what is it achieving. Do we really understand what it is that we're offering and what we think it's doing in the world? And so we've been thinking about that a lot at the gathering. You know, what is a day together in this format, a few days together? What does that do out there in the world? And we think that for us, the kind of thesis is we have to know each other and we have to know a lot about the things we care about. And we have to have opportunities to just do this, like chances where it's not that urgent, it's not about a crisis moment, it's not about fast decision making. It's sort of creating a container or a space where we meet each other, we hopefully build affinity and relationship with each other, and we also kind of open our minds to more than just the thing that we're most focused on. And that we think leads to greater action throughout the year. And we think if we look back, the gathering's been happening for almost 2 decades. I think this is our 19th year doing this every year with community builders. And when I get a chance, my work now is not just in Manitoba. I get to work in regions across Canada. And when I talk about what we do here, this gathering, and then as CCEDNet members, we also gather 2 other times in the year. It's a smaller group of just our formal membership. I think that these are actually some of the most important things that we do, because in those crisis moments, in those moments where we need to respond to government, where we need to come together around our community, it is much easier to do that when we know each other well, when we already have relationships of trust, when we already have a sense of who's doing this work. And so we think that, you know, it's not that this makes that happen, but it contributes to the conditions being in place for you to do that. And that's what we hope is happening. And something our design team, the group of our members who help us put this together, we've been thinking, you know, for many years we've said the gathering is about connecting, learning, and celebrating. And we want to add sort of a 4th dimension, that it's also about action. But how do you do that, right? Like we don't do action on a day when we hang out in a gym or we hang out on Zoom. The action is happening in our communities. And so what we've come to sort of believe, and this we'll have to test it over time and see if it works, but we believe that part of what we can do in a learning event is put that collaborative action stuff on the table and say, we shouldn't take it for granted that just because we're community builders and just because we care about social change, that we know how to do that work. So doing the how of it, how do we do that work of working together for joint action and social change? We've started to call that building the collaborative capacity of our work, of the sector, of our network. And we think that we can actually identify, what are the things we need to know how to do well? What skills do we need to build? What practices do we need to really put in place? What, maybe even deeper than that, what needs to become kind of second nature to us so that we start to build that ability to work together in a better way? And so that's what today is kind of about. We're not going to teach in depth about that, but we're just going to touch on it. So I'm hoping what happens is all of you are here. A lot of you have been to lots of today's or the week's session. Some of you have maybe only been to bits and pieces. Some of you have been part of the network, our network, since it started. Some of you, this is your first time at a gathering. And so from that very diverse place, we're going to consider what we've learned, all the things we've been exposed to this week. We're going to consider our context here in Manitoba and try to kind of bring that together so that as we leave, this keeps kind of ringing in our hearts. We keep thinking about what we've learned here and how it might influence the way that we act in our communities. So we're going to do that in a couple ways. We hope that it is helpful. You'll get a chance to kind of reflect for a second on your own, to do that with people, and to do that by listening to folks. And so I'm going to invite them to the spotlight. So we have two of our gathering design team members and our friends. Melissa and Naomi's going to join us too. So we have a beautiful design team of folks who are connected to different communities and different parts of the community sector, if you could call it a sector. They work in different areas, different kinds of organizations. And so these are two of the fine folks that have helped us put this together. And we've got a couple of questions for them to reflect on that I would encourage you to also reflect on. And so as we do this, maybe Michael, we could throw those questions in the chat for people to just have in the back of their minds. So welcome, both of you.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
No. So nice to see you.
It is good to see your faces. So we said we wanted to, oh, you know what, Michael, can you start with them? And I actually wanted to do a kind of funny thing while we were doing this.
Sure, yeah. Cool. So these are the questions that we put in there. And yeah, as Sarah said, we'll encourage folks to also reflect on them yourself, maybe jot down two on a paper, because later on we'll actually provide some time and space for doing some of that reflection all at the same time. But these are framed if people have been around some of our stuff before. This is, oh my gosh. Wow.
A true fireside chat.
Wow, good work.
We're having a fireside chat today. There we go.
I'm impressed too how quickly you figured out how to put your virtual background as that.
Michael, that's rude. I know how to use Zoom.
No, just joking. You live on Zoom.
Keep going.
Yeah, we have these sort of framed in terms of head, heart, and hands. And I also want to thank Marianne, who's on the call too, for some thinking too about some of these reflective questions and learning. So that first kind of head question we have is around that, like maybe stuff we've learned throughout the week. So the question is, what did you learn this week that will help in movement weaving? I know we have some kind of thought of some things, but Naomi or Melissa, did anything kind of immediately jump out to you when you hear that question?
Oh, maybe you can introduce yourselves too more. I just sort of welcomed you as friends, so feel free to.
Naomi, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. My name is Naomi Gichungu, and for my day job, I work with United Way Winnipeg. I am a visitor on Treaty 1 territory. I am originally from Kenya. I'm very glad to be here and very glad for people who welcomed me here. Yeah, I'm just glad for the journey that I am going through. Previously, I worked with newcomers before at the Needs Center, and so that has been my journey here in Winnipeg. Shall I jump into question one? Okay, great.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so when I was thinking about what I have learned, and I must say that I really enjoyed each session. Anytime I thought about, this is the best session yet, I get into another one and I'm like, oh my goodness, that one, just outdid this one. So I would say that I enjoyed all of the sessions there was a lot of planning to do. There was also the connection and to see people. The first time I jumped on the call, I looked to see sort of like who was attending the gathering, and it's just so nice to see people that you know, people that I've met this year throughout the gathering. So one of the things that I think I am taking away from this is I have been able to put more value in meaningful inclusion, the need for partnerships, and creating relationships. This one came out in most of the sessions, and there was an emphasis for more partnerships with funders. In my work with United Way, we really do see our agency partners as partners in the work that we do. But really, there's obviously more work to do. There's more listening to do. There's more interest in understanding even more the work that agency partners do, but also just for myself, understanding a little bit more what's happening in our community, and being able to create relationships with even community members and community organizations and people who are doing the community building work. So I would say that that's what I'm taking away, particularly in terms of the content and the work that happened through this week.
Thanks, Naomi.
Thanks, Naomi.
Melissa,
Sure.
Melissa, did you? Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. My name is Melissa Chung Moet. I am a second-generation Chinese Canadian, and I am a Métis woman, a descendant of the Red River Valley Métis. I am a North Point Douglas resident, and I currently work for an Indigenous-owned company called MIC, and we do work connecting Indigenous folks with employment in various sectors. And I'm also currently doing some work with SEED and some business development work with New Canadians there. So, and I've been involved with the CCEDNet gathering, attending my first CCEDNet gathering in 2012. I've missed one in the last 8 years, and I almost missed another this week. And I have to say, at the beginning of the week, I was feeling totally overwhelmed with work. And when Michael reached out, I felt so bad. I said, I don't think I can make it happen this week. I don't think I can attend. And then I sat with it and I said, you know what, this is really important, and I'm going to make space and find time, because I think when things are important, we can do that. And one thing I do have to say is that I'm so happy that I was able to tune in when I could, and I couldn't come to all of them. I came to one per day. And one of the things that it's not so much about, well, perhaps it is about community building. I really appreciate the gathering team and how you've crafted an opportunity for folks to connect where really it can meet people where they're at. And I think we're all at different places right now, different pressures, different things are happening. And so the flexibility to come in and it was very seamless, you know, opportunities to take breaks and listen to music and feel really grounded and hear from, you know, people like Elder May Louise. And I just really appreciate all the thought and care that was taken into that, considering that I think people are experiencing a really vast number of different things right now. And so I learned a lot about that this can be done in a really good way. And so thank you for putting all this work, because I think that we can gather in this way. And I think, I don't know so much that it's a learning that I took away, but it was an excellent reminder to me that I heard kind of throughout the sessions I was able to attend about the power of language in the work that we do. And so, for example, hearing Michael Champagne talk about partnerships. So we're working with partners, right? And that's the goal, is to see funders as partners and for them to see themselves as partners in this work. And to remove, and that this kind of language and shifting that can switch power imbalances. And so I think that was a great reminder. And I think another language thing is that our language is constantly adapting and evolving, and opportunities to connect and hear from folks who are doing similar work, but in different sectors and different capacities at different levels, to hear different language being used. And another example that came up were the folks at We24. And, you know, I think you know, it shifts and change, but I think where I was at was talking about people experiencing homelessness and hearing houseless just the power in that home. There's more, home can be described in a number of different ways, but viewing it as houselessness and describing it in that way is something that I've pondered a lot since that session. And so that's one learning that I've taken away in this time.
Sarah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just thank you so much. I think I want to hear more from them than from me. So I think let's go straight into the next one. Unless, Michael, there was anything kind of burning that you wanted to add.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Awesome. So the next one, so again, head, heart, and hands. It's a tool any of you could use in kind of quick reflection and work with people in your community or participants. It just makes us try to reflect on things with more than just our intellectual power, but also our whole selves as people. So the heart part, based on this content, on these conversations, how are you feeling about community building work now?
Yeah, I can see that the first word that came to my mind when I thought about this question was just love. As I attended the sessions, as I mentioned, you see people that you know, but also the presenters, I got to meet them even more closely and chat about knowing each other sort of like on a personal ground. Other people who are attending, I also got a chance to meet them. But I will say more love than anything. I am more invested in this community, more than I was probably last week, right? And so I think my goal sort of like moving forward is to sort of like be involved in ways that I can actually act, because act is also very important. It is great to be involved and to learn, but we also do need to take the steps moving forward. But I think that the environment and the way that I felt sort of like attending and seeing everyone and feeling that sense of community will be able to propel me to be able to act and be involved in many other different ways. So yeah, I would say love, to be honest.
Thanks, Naomi. I think I would agree with you. I definitely feel that as well. And I think I also just feel much more grounded today than I have in a long time. And I'm still sitting in the same place, in the same position I've been sitting for what feels like years, but weeks and whatever. But it feels different at the end of this week, and just having that opportunity to see familiar faces, to kind of step away from and see a broader picture than from the day-to-day things that I'm doing. And that it's easy to get down about, and there's so much to get down about these days. And having reminders that our people are out there doing really important work and are really invested in the community, and really, it's like about that. So much of the work we do comes from that place that Naomi talks about love, and that we want people to flourish and succeed, and that we're all working in that. It may not feel like change is happening when we're focused on our own day-to-day, lives and schedules and everything. But when you take the broad picture, there's so much amazing work happening, and it's very inspiring. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
That's great. I just to add a bit on, thanks both for those comments that continue to fill my heart with love throughout that I've been feeling this week. But definitely, Melissa, what I've so appreciated through this week is that connection with that bigger picture. And I've been describing to some people, like, as many folks who know me on this call, my work is around policy and organizing work. And I've been at this desk in my bedroom since March, and I was so happy on Monday to deliver tobacco to Elder May and to Jolene, who's been doing our smudges in the morning. And it felt like the first actual like physical thing I've done in months. That's not just virtual. But even though this week was all virtual, what it did help sort of connect into that broader picture really well for me, and it felt more alive or more real than it has over the past few months. And especially, I think that vision around what we talk a lot about at CCEDNet around like community-led or community ownership. And something I thought that was really cool that totally happened accidentally yesterday in the programming is there were 3 sessions, and I think all the sessions spoke to this in different ways, but the 3 sessions sort of spoke to what community-led or community-owned looks like when we talk about social, economic, or environmental issues. So the first one in the morning about social finance, I think really began to think about more what community-led finance models in Manitoba look like, and gave us some really good learning as a CCEDNet team about more learning that needs to be done there. The second one that SNA led about community-led safety and what community leading that work and what We24 and SNA, Spence Neighborhood Association, has done, I think really articulated that. And then the last session about environmental cooperatives, social enterprises, and nonprofits who are really leading their own environmental and climate change resiliency work. So I'm leaving kind of this week with a really good and better understanding of what community-led looks like. And then especially to answer that feeling question about community building work, is that I think my good friend Laura Tyler, I think is on this call, often says that things move at the speed of trust. And I think that for me, this conference and week has really done well to build that trust so we can continue articulating what that community-led, community-owned looks like.
Michael, I'll jump on that. Yeah, we were talking about yesterday, and it was a bit accidental. I mean, as much as anything's an accident when you're really steeped in the work that you're trying to present, I think. But something else that happened that I think can only happen when we gather in bigger groups, sort of not just in one sector or one type of organization or one demographic. When we gather in this way with a lot of different things, I think that we can see the future better, if that makes any sense. Like, all of those sessions for me yesterday, they took us in each of the content areas. We got to like imagine the next step. Like, what would it look like if it were better? What would it look like if the community did this? What would it look like if we did the things we're talking about and we actually achieved some of that? And I think, that's a part of our mission or our vision actually at CCEDNet, is that it's not just inclusive and sustainable communities in a kind of static way. It's inclusive and sustainable communities that are directing their own futures, that they're in control of their own future. And I think that's a hard sense to build on your own. It's a really hard sense to build right now, because we're sitting, like we all have said, in our rooms by ourselves. But there's a new sort of vision or a new sort of sight that we get when we all come together that's really, really special. And I think that ties to head and heart to me, because it's something more than just intellectual. It's something about what's offered when we're all together, when we're in a collective. I think that leads maybe well into the kind of the last piece. The hands part is about action. So what are we thinking about? What are, Melissa and Naomi, based on that learning and those feelings, are there any actions you might be thinking about taking as an individual or in your work, or maybe in this bigger movement towards community change?
And I will go back to that social finance session. I think there was a lot of reflection at that session. I would particularly be going and talking to people about sort of like the importance of, like what I learned during the gathering. But particularly for that session, it's more that I will be calling my bank to sort of like see where the investments of the money that I have saved in terms of RRSP is being invested, right? Like, I need to know, right? And I think those are the small steps that we can begin to take on an individual basis, but also talk to people in our small circles. As I was very invested in this, I am sure someone else will be really keen to hear about what I learned and some of the things that I'm taking away from this gathering. As an organization, I will, as United Way, and I'm sure some of you have heard Connie say that United Way really is about working in a united way. And we're only able to do that if we continue to listen. We do a great job at listening to the community and consulting and being in conversation, but we will continue to definitely be able to listen and to form those partnerships and to value those partnerships and the relationships that we're creating in the community, and be very open to hearing and to having volunteers or other people who come to the organization and are involved in different ways be part of what shapes really us working as in a united way. Yeah, those will be my thoughts and reflections for that.
So I guess my takeaway in my hands part of this is I really appreciated the last session around the title Screens of Change and Online Organizing. I think there were some very tangible tools in there that as we all navigate, connecting in a virtual way and mobilizing in a virtual way, I feel like there were some really practical steps in how to do that, some really important things to consider and not lose sight of when doing that work. And then also like very technical tools that can support this work if used in, the right way. And so I just thought that it applied to everyone's work here, because we're all mobilizing, we're all doing and organizing and doing work, and having some very practical and concrete ways and ideas and tips and thoughts on how to do that work was really, really helpful in kind of bringing all the various things that are happening in the community. I think it applied to so many of what we are working on. So that's what I've taken lots of notes over the last 3 days, and so I need to organize them, but there are lots of things for me to consider, and working. I'm not really working in a grassroots organization now. It's very different from what I'm used to in that it's a for-profit company, but yet it's still very much grounded in community, and the intention behind the work we do is really about reducing barriers for folks. And so not losing sight of that, despite feeling like I'm in a different sector at times, that there are so many ways to connect with community that are really important in doing this work, and that it's all part of this like broad continuum of social change. And so yeah.
Thanks, both of you. I feel really I think similar, like what sort of the action piece, what I'm like really has stood out too throughout all sessions is like somehow folks simultaneously balancing that like big vision with like a real practical roadmap of steps. And Joseph in the session this morning like gave me a good reminder, which was to not like then spend all that time in that sort of vision or strategy phase, but also to let things sort of organically emerge too. So that feels like an important kind of action to my work is letting that stuff kind of organically emerge while still knowing that we hold a really big vision and a really important one, and that's really important to articulate. So the sort of action I think applying to lots of these things is that term that Sarah used earlier, that collaborative capacity, feels really important, and knowing that it's a skill that we don't just like stumble into. But it's something that we need to hone and work on and practice at. And I think that's really important learning across a lot of the coalitions, whether that's real grassroots or working with organizations on coalitions. That I think that applies to all of that. Is that collaborative capacity is something that we need to build into our work as a skill that we need to practice. And then connected to our organization at CCEDNet is we're really wanting to make sure that the gathering and the learning or event series that we put on connect and relate to each other. So I think we picked up some really important ways that what we know folks on the call have said throughout the week of we need to learn more about this one, or this is something we need to practice. So that's a really tangible sort of action I think we can provide further learning on those things that really stood out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that my actions are often really related to my CCEDNet work. And so again, my work is this is one of the few days this year that I've gotten to really just steep myself back in what Manitoba is doing, what's happening here in Winnipeg. I have the great pleasure of taking part in federal government stuff and regional conversations in other provinces. And I think, the reason that our ED, Mike Toy, and I agreed that I should do that is because I've had this great opportunity to steep myself in what's happening here. And we have, I think it's important for me to let you all know that the work you do as a movement, as a network, in CCEDNet, it is very impressive to people outside of Manitoba. I think Manitobans don't get credit very often because we're a smaller province, even though we're a big geographic province, we're a small province population-wise, and we're actually pretty quiet. We're actually pretty not even just quiet about ourselves. We're actually pretty self-deprecating about ourselves. But in this field, in community work, in the idea of community leadership, you are looked at as very impressive across Canada. We have regional gatherings that are trying to figure out how to be organized the way that we are here in Manitoba. So I feel like if I'm a battery, I like got recharged with like reminders about why that is. Like the brilliant work that Spence talked about, like just so naturally integrating policy level change and internal organizational change and integrating grassroots movements into something they're doing. Like that's not happening everywhere in that way. And the chat, all the chat stuff that's been going on about how do we improve this and what could these folks connect, and the way that we move pretty fluidly between different movement areas and folks know each other. That's part of living in a smaller province, but it's also an instinct that we have here that's really special. And so I think my biggest action will be kind of just reminding myself that I think there's something to be shared and in other places. I think that the way that you build power together here to affect greater change is something that that a lot of provinces are hoping for. And then at the national level, if we can figure out how to get all these regions organized and then we can get that together at the federal level, I feel like we can build really, really incredible power towards making a big shift where communities are really in charge of how resources are distributed, how we work together, how we make these kinds of changes. So yeah, I think that's just like the recommitment from me to really be an ambassador for the work that you're doing, and also make sure that some of those resources and supports come back to this really special place as well. And so I think that's it. Melissa and Naomi, we thank you so much. We kind of promised you it'd be an easy, casual conversation. I think it has been, hopefully, and really just appreciate your insight and also your commitment, your support, and volunteering to help make this event happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I think now, I think she's quite nervous about it, and she doesn't need to be. We're going to call up Matea to the spotlight, and she's going to show us a quick preview of the images she's been creating to capture some of this. So hopefully this will be the one and only time you'll see her turn her video on, I think. And we also promised her that she only has to talk for a couple of seconds. So Matea, are you there?
I am, but I'm not sure how to get my video to start working.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay if it doesn't work.
Just one sec, okay? Sorry about this.
Oh, that's
Here we
okay. It's just giving such great anticipation for the beautiful artwork that you've been working on throughout the week.
You know what? It's like asking me to quit Zoom and then come back in order for it to work. So I'll just use my voice. I even showered for this.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's fine. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me. It's been like a really meaningful and an engaging experience. It's been really positive. Yeah, so this is the drawing that I've put together over the last 3 days. I really tried to highlight some key points from each session. There was so much information, and so I just tried to highlight some key points, and I hope I was able to capture, the essence of each session. Yeah.
Matea, I'll just ask you one question, and I know that you want to get back to it, and that you don't want to be at the center of attention all the time. But when we talked about having you do this, one of the things we really kind of connected on was like, how do you capture some of the energy of what is usually an in-person event kind of in an image, or kind of try to catch some of that? Like, what would be your reflection? You've been able to observe a lot, like, about that sort of intangible piece, like the energy of it. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, it's been cool because we're all, in Zoom land. There was still such an emphasis on togetherness and this like idea of like power in numbers, and that just like resonated through each session. And I thought that was really, really cool. Even though, yeah, we're all virtual, it really did feel like people were connecting, and it was nice to witness.
That's awesome. So our colleague Matthew's got the image on the screen, is doing a bit of a scroll, but the good news is that Matea is going to, work on this, get it kind of finished up, and it's going to be something that we can, I think, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hoping we're going to be able to add it to the Lightbox that's sent to folks, and we'll have a digital version as well to share with people, so you'll get a chance to see it a bit more close up and have it as kind of a keepsake and reminder of what was happening here. So Matea, thank you so much. It adds a dimension to this that, we can't do. Like I can talk for hours, and we can do flip charts, and we can do slideshows, and like that isn't the same as what you can do. You bring a gift and a skill that we don't have on our team, and that adds something really important. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matea. Oh, there I am. Oh, it's just beautiful. And the quotes too that you've captured, I think really put together in this way, I think further articulate that vision, and then the actions that we've kind of asserted and said throughout the week that folks are taking. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matea. And Matthew, I think you can stop sharing now. Thanks so much for doing that. And so I think so now I think Michael's going to kind of take it off to kind of take us into our next bit here. Am I right?
Sure. Yeah.
Schedule? Awesome.
Yeah, so we want, that's great. And I think I saw folks were asking about, Matea, your contact info or Instagram handle or anything. So I think someone put the website. Feel free to put anything else in the chat there. So the next kind of bit in the last sort of 35 or 40 minutes we want to do is, before we have a chance to have some own individual reflection, I want to kind of take this conversation around action and next steps, and this idea that Sarah talked about in terms of building our collaborative capacity. And that's really that sort of thesis, that really important piece of like what links and weaves these things together is really where we want to take this last little bit, knowing that, the gathering necessarily as a learning event isn't the place where we're all going to go march on somewhere right now, especially we can't even do that at all. But considering that building our collaborative capacity will be really important for all the kinds of different actions that we take to get towards our vision, whether those kind of marches or those kind of policy submissions, or those meetings with government, or those building of new community initiatives that all sort of, like Melissa said, are kind of contribute to that push for social change. So yeah, definitely our work and our vision for all the community builders on the call will be really important. And I think Elder May said it like so clearly this morning in that example. And when I dropped off tobacco to Elder May for you on Monday, I definitely saw, what working in the North Point Douglas and in the North End, what definitely is a really serious issue with an increase in homelessness or houselessness, thinking about language. And it's so clear how much the pandemic has exposed those inequities, as everyone on this call knows. So that really important work that we're collaborating well across people from many different communities and different identities will be so crucial to make sure that we're supporting each other into the next year. So what we're going to do is first kind of think about where we are in terms of those different parts of our sector, or our movements, or our network, as a way to sort of situate where we might be coming from in this work. And again, we're welcoming folks here with lots and lots of history, or who for this gathering is sort of their first exposure to some of these things, and everyone is welcome in this conversation. And then we're going to sort of consider what different pieces of building that collaborative capacity, a quick teaching or kind of lesson in some of those things that will allow us to frame some breakout room conversations around how do we strengthen this work. So Sarah, are you able to put that, or I've got it right here. Oh, thanks. So if folks want to go to this link that I just posted in the, or Sarah posted in the chat, it goes to a PowerPoint presentation that I'm hoping doesn't totally shut down as a result of a bunch of people going to it. And I think what we'll do is just let people go to it and maybe we'll share our screen after. But what you can see there is, this actually comes from the roadmap document. Every year, and many people on this call participated in our annual policy summit, which is a way that we sort of really practically get together and say, these are the things that need to happen or change in order to achieve our vision. And what we heard from folks is sort of being able to better articulate that as opposed to just a random set of ideas into a bit of a vision or a roadmap is really important. And I think that same kind of thinking could be applied to this past week. The different sets of really amazing ideas through the workshops, I think really fit kind of cohesively into different parts of a vision that all need to happen at the same time. So I just encourage you to look at this document. It has these sort of, yeah, Sarah.
I think I will share my screen. I don't see quite everyone there, and I just realized that folks that maybe are using the ASL or closed captioning, that might be too many different screens and spaces. So I'm going to just share my screen so folks can see this.
Okay, great. So what you can see here is different those like signposts of some movement areas, and I want to say that these aren't a perfect way to describe or understand our movements, absolutely, and you could be sort of happening across all 5 of these. So grab a heart, they're all editable, so you can take one on the side and just think about where you might situate yourself in terms of the movements. I know, yeah, again, not perfect, and put yourself in more than one if you'd like to. The movements that exist sort of in our work. Oh, someone moved the picture. That was a thing I don't know how to do. Yeah, I think that's really important to sort of consider and situate ourselves where our work, whether it's organizing or volunteer work or paid work, what kind of, where do we see ourselves in this movement? Sarah, do you have anything to add to that sort of offer or invitation to join this slide?
I don't think so. Maybe I'll just, as people are doing it, this will probably take a second if you haven't done sort of a screen share and looking at this thing. So this is called Google Slides as part of the Google Suite. It's like a PowerPoint, but all online. And this is a tip we learned, our colleague Hannah introduced this to us. I think she learned it from another resource around how to do good facilitation online. So using things like Google Slides is a way to get people interacting, even if you're in too big of a group, to have an open chat or anything like that. And the other thing I might say, because I see people are starting to do it, which is awesome, is just maybe we'll just kind of like name them again and like say a bit about what they might look like. So why don't you? I mean, you should talk about ending poverty because it's because you're right in the middle of it.
Sure. Yeah, and definitely, if folks were at last year's gathering, you might remember these subject or theme or stream areas. So I think ending poverty we talked about could look like work that's around like policy change to support or help address poverty. It might look like frontline work to support the needs of folks who are currently living in poverty, or it might look like, I think there was a breakout group last year that was like a burn it all down around like how do we change our economies or systems that just creates more equity in our world.
Nice.
So if that's the sort of work you might find yourself, you can put your heart near those 2 houses with money. The local and fair economies, I think we see as real practically, maybe folks working in cooperatives or social enterprises or other social economy enterprises or credit unions who are really concerned or thinking about that like leaky bucket approach, that good old-fashioned community economic development understanding of how do we make sure we're closing those holes in our buckets if we're thinking about the economy that way.
I think it can also get into the stuff about like advocacy around changing our tax system or about a living wage or fair minimum wages. Like some of those kinds of things might fit there too. So it's similar to ending poverty. There's a big spectrum within there, but yeah, the piece that our networks often cared about is how do we help communities create business so that we become bigger agents of change in the economy because we're in control of more of it. But I think it can stretch to some of those other kind of campaign oriented work around the economy too.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Or a quick shout out to anyone on the call who's part of the social procurement work about how government's doing our purchasing. The next one, tackling climate change, might be folks doing like climate justice advocacy work. So friends at the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition, or maybe people who also in their work, whether it's their social enterprise or cooperative, who have an environmental mandate. So we heard from Mother Earth Recycling or Fireweed Food Co-op folks yesterday. Yeah, so that's one of the roadmap stops. Again, you could put a heart on all 5 of these if you'd like to. I think I did.
And I'll just say to people again, I see there's about 33 or so people in here. If you're not in it yet, the link was in the chat. Maybe, Michael, you could put it in the chat again.
Sure, yeah.
That should be open to anybody who can open it on a browser. So then you'll open up and see you'll see this screen, you'll be in that document. So as facilitators, it's like a really cool way to get people engaged in your work. It's also like you gotta let go of some control too, because you don't know what'll happen really, but it's a chance to give it a try. So if you want to try opening that up and you want to add your hearts to the movement areas that you're connected to. Oh, I see someone even adding some. Oh, nice. Someone put their heart is on the road. That's cool.
Cool.
Sustainable community-led development. I mean, I think that's probably where a lot of you kind of sit in your work. This for us is, you know, that's the work of the neighborhood renewal corporations. It's the work of citizen action. It's the work of community resource centers, women's resource centers, family resource centers. This is work where, you know, I think a very Manitoba way of doing this work is where communities come together to create organizations and institutions and models and initiatives where we take care of each other. We create space and time to take care of each other, and we create space and time to also be the planners of that work, to figure out what's needed and what to do. And part of that development piece is that it's not just that we offer service, it's that we do it together and we think about how to do it in the long term, sustainably. And the sustainable part for us is also talking to governments and funders about how to resource this work in a really positive way, because it's not just a drop in the bucket kind of work. It's about creating sustainable systems to support people in community.
The last one is inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, which I think are values and principles that all of these have or should be leading with. But also I think it's important to put as its own piece too of really crucial work where also policy or movement needs to change to support some of these principles too. So we heard really, really important contributions from the folks in the Beyond Solidarity Statements panel about how in policy and in social change, we can move towards anti-racism and decolonization. There might be other things in here around more accessible spaces, more accessible society or economies, gender diversity or gender equity is part of that work. So I think it's important that we sort of labeled it, but know that it's really woven into the other ones.
Nice.
Maybe people might still be putting those on, but Sarah, maybe we can move on to the next.
Yeah, definitely. So you can keep thinking about that, right? Like, where do you fit? And also, I think at a Manitoba level, where do you see there being strength in those different roadmap stops, I think is a useful reflection as well. And then this one is a bit more about that collaborative capacity. And, you know, as far as we can tell, there isn't sort of one framework for what is collaborative capacity or a list of like what skills are included in that. So we're still working that out. And we actually see that as part of our work at CCEDNet over the next year or two, is to really think about that. Like, what are the list of skills that we all need to have if we want to work in this way? And so this is one model. It comes out of network weaving, which is an approach that's getting, you know, I think more and more popular. There's more writing about it. There's a great blog. It's sort of, it's one of the key sources of information and learning for me as someone who's been leading in a network for a long time. And so these are what they consider the effective characteristics of networks. And so we want you to put hearts, as people putting hearts there already, which is great. Where I want you to put the hearts is thinking about Manitoba. So it doesn't have to be just CCEDNet, it could be kind of any of the networks or collaborative groups you're involved with. I'm going to go through these and let's put hearts on the places where we think that we're really good at this work, where we have strength in these capacities. So you know, the first is people and relationships. So in an effective collective organization or collective group, we have a network of diverse individuals and organizations. We're well connected, we're growing, we're working as peers. We take responsibility for bringing in new people, and we think of everyone as being a leader. The next one is about culture and alignment. So people in this collaborative, we operate with sort of a network mindset. We're thinking about collaborative action. We're aligned around a common purpose. We value openness, transparency, and we're intentional about wanting to make action. So in collaborative action, there are many people that are identifying opportunities and pulling together people and resources, and they're taking action that makes a difference. Support. The collaborative has developed a system of support that includes interactive communication, training, learning, resources, and they're tracking to make sure that we're actually seeing something happen, because there's progress and action happening. And then structure. So people in the network are aware of how it functions. They know how to kind of get into it. They know how it operates. we understand that it's coordinated and who does that, and we know how we make decisions together in that collaborative group. So just take a second and think about it. And so there's 2 questions to think about. For the hearts, put a heart where you think that there's strength in Manitoba. And internally, just for yourself, think about, where do you have strength? You know, where in these capacities are you maybe like really naturally gifted? And then where are there ones that maybe not so much? You kind of don't think about it as easily or naturally. And put the heart where you see us together as being strong. Where is Manitoba strong in these characteristics? I'll give you a second to do that because it'll help us with our breakout room thinking. Michael, is that kind of good? Is there anything else you'd want to say about that?
No, that sounds great. Yeah, I really like this framing to begin to think about sort of and apply it to networks, coalition work, maybe grassroots work, maybe more organizational work. I think it can be applied really well across all of that.
So maybe the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get us organized for some breakout conversation, is you might be able to start thinking about what the skills are. And we don't need to do that today. I think that's a growing thing for all of us. But you might see like people in relationships, like really accessibility measures might be a skill or practice that you can build there. Culture and alignment, it might be about how do we do strategic planning or visioning together in good ways. It might be about how we organize our meetings and conduct them so that everyone has a voice and can learn and get involved. You know, in action, it might be like, what are the tactics that we use? Do we all feel comfortable with the kinds of tactics that we use, whether it's rallying or protesting or writing submissions or doing programs together? You know, and support, I think support and structure is where a lot of the skills come out. It might be about facilitation skills, about communication skills, the different tools we can use online or in person, about that kind of big funny word of governance. You know, do we know who's making decisions and why? So those are some of the things we're thinking about and wanting to really emphasize that we don't think we have to just take this for granted and either be good at it or bad at it. It's like a lot of skills that we can start to identify what are the practices, and then we can start to learn about them together and start building them. And not, maybe start's the wrong word. I think we're actually doing a lot of that in Manitoba, but we can get even more intentional about growing good practice around collaboration. Okay, and so I see a lot of this has come out, and if you were to, I'll stop sharing my screen in a second, but if we went back to the movement streams, I think you can see it's actually a pretty good spread. Like based on the folks here that are thinking about this, we got a pretty good spread of people interested in this different work. You know, maybe the tackling climate action's a little bit less, but otherwise there's a pretty good interesting spread, which is very interesting to think about. And then here I see more hearts on that first category. So there's more hearts in having a diverse network and having relationships, having some alignment and action, and there's less hearts on support and structure. So that might be, I mean, it's not everybody, clearly. We don't have everyone here in the room that's doing collaborative work, but it gives us a sense that maybe in Manitoba, we're good at that left-hand side, where we're good at people and relationships, we're good at alignment, we're good at action, and maybe figuring out some of those structural pieces is something that we're still needing to grow in Manitoba. So that'll be helpful as we go to breakouts. And then to explain the breakouts, I'm going to show you this page, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and you can stay open in this document. It's okay if people don't end up doing this, but just to have a place to capture your thoughts, we've created a lot of these slides that you can just go in and click, and then it's just like any slide that you're building. You can go and say, hey, I'm Sarah. We talked about blah, I don't know. Well, you know, you can record whatever you want there, but when you're in your breakout, grab one of those slides and add a few comments on your conversation. If you don't do it, no problem, but we know it's nice to collect some thinking from people. I'm going to mute now and invite Carrie to play a little music while we do our individual reflection.
Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yes.
Here's a little song you might recognize.
I don't know if anyone. Yep, that's perfect. Everyone's, stick around for these last few comments because Carrie's going to play us out when we're done. And of course, I told you at the beginning that I would just kind of cry throughout. So I'm crying again. Thank you for that. I'm crying because of that great contribution and also what I'm seeing in this forum. So I'm going to read a couple and then we have some thank yous and then Carrie will play. So some of the things that we should leave behind, I think it's useful to hear that we should leave behind cynicism and negativity and accepting the status quo. We should leave behind looking too much at the mountain of challenges. We can leave behind comparison and competition, defeatist attitudes, short-sightedness and fear. Our small little view of the little piece of the funding pie. A good one for us as organizers, we can have sessions be a little longer so we can maybe leave behind, our own fear of like how to do sessions at work and our concerns about that. Loneliness and isolation. And some of the things that we should take with us, collaboration. I'm grateful to hear that kind of resonated for folks. That we can still be connected even if it's virtually, and the importance of reconnecting. Community building and relationship building continues to be a critical component of community work. Collaborative capacity, that regardless of circumstance, COVID, or barriers, we are community and we'll survive and thrive. We can believe in the speed of trust. Remember that we have a lot happening here. How can we keep these wonderful NGOs, movements in the forefront of our minds? We can do this online. That we are all good people doing good work. We're not alone in our challenge to make this a better world. Awareness of community resources, how we collaborate in a mindful, inclusive way, ways to educate young people to engage new and renewed relationships. I'll leave it there. It's a lovely, lovely set of sentiments and I think really useful. So yeah, we'll send you your thoughts in a couple of months, which will hopefully kind of help what we've been learning ring forward into the future. And then I wanted to, maybe we could spotlight Darcy as well. I think he's going to help us. We just wanted to say a lot of thank yous because it's a different thing to put a conference on, but something we learned very quickly is that it's just as hard a thing to put it on, to do it in this world as it is to somehow throw together a family reunion in a high school. It's hard in a different way. And there's been a lot of people that have helped make it happen. So I think maybe Darce was going to start, if that's right. Oh no, Michael was going to start. Yeah. Michael's gonna
So yeah, just some quick but very sincere thank yous to Elder May, who I know is on the call for a while for this closing plenary. To Jolene Wilson, Jojo for the morning smudges that started the days so well. And to all the speakers, panelists, presenters, trainers, blew my mind with so much learning. And then to the musicians who really made this like the community feeling for me as so to my friends, Madeline and Anthony and Carrie and Chim, who were artists and musicians throughout the week.
So I have some thank yous as well. In the background of this all, we have what we have called a gathering design team. In the past, it was the gathering planning committee. And these are folks who have been a sounding board and provided insight and guidance to us as we've gone along this. And we're part of the conversation when we initially decided that we're probably not going to be in a gym together. That call was made sometime in about April or May. So thank you to them and the organizations or boards who have given their time to us so that they can give their expertise. And in alphabetical order specifically, it's Brendan Reimer from Assiniboine Credit Union, Don Sands from the North End Community Renewal Corporation, Denise McDonald from West Central Women's Resource Center, Jessica De Silva from Youth Agencies Alive, Marianne Sorelli, Melissa Chung from AMIC, Naomi Kuchungu from United Way Winnipeg, and Vera Gusart from the Manitoba Cooperative Association. We're thankful to also our sponsors, United Way Winnipeg, Assiniboine Credit Union, Manitoba Building Trades, the Social Enterprise Ecosystem Project, HTFC Planning and Design, and 2 small men with big hearts moving. And this whole thing is dependent upon suppliers all over the place. Matea Radic, thank you very much for putting together that wonderful graphic recording for us. Thank you, Light, Local Investment Towards Employment, for helping us with the box of goodies. Will come from Artbeat Studio, Indigenous Women's Healing Center, The Cutting Edge, and they're going to be delivered by Scope. So we're very grateful to all those folks. Thank you, Equality Communication Center of Excellence, for their ASL, Cheryl Wallace and their team for their verbatim reporters and closed captioning, and Tracy O'Neill for Simple Life Designs, who's our graphic designer. So thank you all. I guess Zoom, thanks. Less than thanks to the other suppliers, but you know, so that's it. Thank you all.
And I get to go last. That's the pleasure of being sort of the lead on a team. Is oh, one more joke. No, Darcy's muted already. That's helpful. Let's shut him up for the day. Just kidding.
Oh, that Zoom joke was good enough.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, good IT joke, Darcy. We highlighted Jen, so you haven't heard Jen's voice really during this event, but you have felt her presence even though you didn't know it. Jen's on our Spark team. So both Jen and Michael stepped into taking on this gathering role after our other colleague, our lovely friend and colleague, Dunya Kovacevic, decided to move on to a new career. So I don't think she's been able to join anything, but she kind of kicked off the process and then left our team, I think in September or so. And Michael and Jen stepped into kind of a dual role with Darcy at the helm to make this happen in a year that's been very challenging for all of us, I think, but definitely at CCEDNet, we've had a bunch of really hard moments in this year, and they stepped into this role, probably not understanding what it meant or how much work it was going to be. And Michael, brought together the program, and Jen brought together a lot of those suppliers, and also did a lot of the communication, got our all that stuff together, figured out our imagery with Tracy, did those pieces. So even though Jen hasn't been on the screen with us, she has been creating this container in a really, really important and deep way. So we wanted to highlight her and make sure that you saw her lovely face today. We also have a lot of CCEDNet staff that have been pitching in along the way. Matthew and Hannah are the leads of our engagement team, and they have built a website for us. They helped us figure out all this Zoom stuff. They brought their team to the table, Ben and Adriana, to help with these things, and our other Manitoba staff, so Jeff and Lindsay from the Spark team. They've been part of the care team and participant managing, doing all kinds of work. I guess I'm really biased because I've been working in this team for about a decade. And for the last number of years, I've been sort of the leader and helped bringing these people together and helping them really just helping them have what they need to do the work that they should do. And I will cry now because they are just the best people. You are very fortunate in Manitoba to have people like them and that design team. It's remarkable, and it's not something that I see in other places. The level of care and love that this team has for each other and has for you is very impressive. It makes me proud every day. And I went to all of their houses in a safe, distanced way and gave them all a gift yesterday. And just seeing them as whole human beings in a doorway gave me a lot of joy. So they are phenomenal. And lastly, really, all of you. We do this work because we are inspired and bolstered and really healed, I think, when we watch what you do in community. And so we make this work happen for you. I see you giving us sort of praise for all the work that we do. We don't mind at all getting tired and putting energy in, because if it gives you a space where you get to take a breath, where you get to be with like-minded people, where you turn to each other and gain support and you're bolstered to do your work, we don't really care how much work that takes for us, because what you do is so important. So that's it for us, and I'm going to invite Carrie back on, and she's going to play some music to let us go. So please, enjoy that. Stick around for a bit to listen to her, and all of you, we wish you just the best and a lovely end of this year. I hope that we'll all be in person together soon, and while we can't be, let's find spaces to turn to each other. Thank you all so much, and Carrie, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all your hard work and dedication and inspiring passion. I'm sorry to sing you a song inspired by my dad telling me about when he got beat as a child and he had to go pick out his own Caragana branch from the Caragana bush. And I ask my audiences sometimes, did this actually happen? And many people put up their hands. It's so sad. But that's where my mind goes when I write songs. So apologies in advance. She sent me out searching for a Caragana switch, where I deserved a beating, or so my mother said. The thin ones leave you bleeding, and the thick ones hurt like hell, which is where I'm going anyway, or so my mother tells, which is where she's going anyway, or so her mother tells. As adeptly as I'm able, I consider every branch, every leaf blowing gently in the breeze. But there's no way of winning, so I take a random step and sing, oh, the pain you'll bring to me. It's a sing-along. Oh, the pain you'll bring to me. I went out waltzing with a soldier and his gun, with the salesman who went door to door and an old politician. The mean ones leave you bleeding, and the sweet ones hurt like hell, which is where I'm going anyway, like my mother used to tell, which is where she's going anyway, like her mother used to tell. As adeptly as I'm able, I consider every man, every kiss blown, and every ardent plea. But there's no way of winning, so I take a random step and sing, oh, the pain you'll bring to me. Oh, the pain you'll bring to me. Oh, the pain you'll bring to me. It's so beautiful to see the sign language. Thank you. This is a song called Vulture Lullaby. When I was traveling in Cuba with my 2 children and my husband, we saw these beautiful birds up in the sky flying so incredibly high. And when I asked the locals what they were, they said that they were vultures. So I thought, well, that's not a bad way to go. My dear one, soaring high above our heads, circling, is a bird, shadow wings as dark as death, circling. She will tear at our flag. Thank you. I can't hear you, but I can see you. You look beautiful. It's so nice to see so many people. I'm feeling very emotional too. So I'll try a new song. I might screw it up, but I feel like you're a very forgiving bunch of people. And I just want to say again how beautiful it is to watch you work, and I'm completely inspired. And I hope that we all come out of this as a new world. And I have faith because of you guys. This is called Fly Wild, and it's about starlings and how connected they are. And I wrote it during the pandemic. I usually write really dark songs, but I didn't want to for some reason. So this is a happy song. Okay, see if I can do it. I'm tethered to you like a starling to a starling, swirling like a maniac. We go left, we go right, let's paint the twilight sky. Where you go, I go with you. Through the steeples, trying to reach a little higher, then dive into the alleyways. We go up, we go down, try to miss the hardest ground. Where you go, I go with you. Hold on, I hear you call when the wind gets all wound up again. Throws us around, we're just feathers in a hurricane. I fly wild when you fly wild with me. I fly wild with you. Fly wild with me. No explanation for this cosmical connection, a synchro mystery. When you're near or you're farling, my heart's a tethered starling. Where you go, I go with you. Where you go, I go with you. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks everybody. As we're leaving, Carrie, I know you've been, you may not recognize me in this format, but I work with Rainbow Trout Music Festival as well.
I do recognize you. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Carrie, it's so good to see you. And we were just texting in our little group chat that you just made this feel like Sunday afternoon at Rainbow Trout somehow.
Oh,
like
perfect.
I got the same like warm feeling.
I have that same feeling. It's nice to see your faces. Thank you for inviting me and having me socialize. I even showered today.
Well done. 2020 victory. And I see people are dropping off, which is great. We're done for the day, so we will start putting you in the waiting room. If you're there and you want to just leave the meeting, you can. You'll get an email at some point in the next couple of days with an evaluation and hopefully some follow-up too. We're thinking about how to best add some things together to give you follow-up, so watch for that. Michael, I see you up spotlighted here too.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say thanks again to Carrie. That was so lovely. Brought tears to my eyes. Bye, everyone.